Welcome, class. Please put everything away and take out your number 2 pencil because we will now commence with your standardized test. These are the words spoken by your English teacher before the tests are about to begin. We've all heard this phrase at one point of our educated lives. I'm here to have a formal discussion with my fellow group members about the legitimacy of standardized tests and whether they determine the student and the school well-being. We can discuss this topic with great credibility because we've been through the standardized testing process and have recent sources researched carefully. This doesn't apply to just us, however, because it's also something you should pay attention to as well, since it establishes reasoning to why you're in this university. The speakers for today are Ziona Sober and Jonathan Rojas. I, Jensen Aquino, on the other hand, represent the mediator who will facilitate the whole process of this speech. Today, Ziona will be challenging standardized tests' usefulness, while Jonathan will be arguing that they are an accurate way to measure students and the school's ability. Today, I'd like to start with Ziona. Ziona?
Can you imagine you could study all semester long, where you sit down, you look at a page, and it just gets blurry, and your future is determined by what you fill in the blanks with. And I mean, I think standardized tests are just an improper way of testing students' knowledge. They're outdated. According to Diane Rabbit, one of the most respected educational historians in the world, wrote, "Because we are teaching children, every question has 4 possible answers, 1 which is right, and 3 which are wrong." I can't imagine. I mean, why should one bubble mark the rest of our lives? Look, standardized testing is so outdated. There's better ways of recording students' academic abilities than through one test and year. There's a system that tells schools they aren't good enough and students they aren't good enough unless they reach a certain status or get a certain level, get to a certain level. It's not fair. According to the article, high standardized test scores don't translate better in cognition, reported by U.S. News. Standardized tests also teach students the wrong method. Standardized tests teach students to memorize information rather than learn information that they can use in the future. It's not a great way for harboring our young leaders. I'd like to turn over the floor.
Jonathan?
Well, my response to Ziona's point is that standardized testing is definitely not outdated. There are a variety of uses for these assessments that are still relevant to the classroom as well as the educational process today. In terms of the idea that standardized tests simply encourage memorization rather than actually learning and applying this information, these assessments are not for teaching purposes. The point is to measure the scholastic ability of the student, school, district, and etc. It is through this that the state is able to take a look at different schools and grade levels and determine where assistance is needed, as well as it allows students the ability to learn how to critically think about the information that they should already know. These assessments are much more than an exam to pass students. It's to make sure that students are being exposed to the information that they need to be exposed to, and to ensure that those struggling can be identified and given help. In an online article, Pros and Cons of Standardized Testing, teaching expert Derek Meter states, "Standardized testing holds teachers and schools accountable. Probably the greatest benefit of standardized testing is that teachers and schools are responsible for teaching students what they are required to know for these standardized tests. These standardized tests are beneficial to the scholastic experience and what comes after. Thank you.
Interesting, interesting. I see that both of you have really good points. But since there's only one part of the discussion, I feel like there should be your point of view, Jonathan. Can you further explain why you believe your thoughts?
Sure, of course. Another one of my points are that by using these assessments, students as well as their teachers are able to see where they are academically weak or strong. With this knowledge, they can proceed to work on the subjects that students are having more trouble with. In Galvin Brown's article, The Benefits of Standardized Assessment in Childhood Education, he says, student self-academic reporting is an effective way to gauge a student's understanding in their studies. Now, some students are able to accurately estimate their academic performance. However, this is not the case for all students. Minority students often underestimate their own ability and thus become a barrier for themselves academically by having low expectations. By continuing standardized testing, this can be used to combat these barriers that these minority students are creating for themselves. It allows them to accurately see where it is, what level they are in their scholastic ability, rather than continue to beat themselves up and have such low expectations of themselves. It shows them exactly where it is that they're weak in their academics, and it gives them the opportunity to work on those things in order to be a well-rounded student and be able to move forward and succeed.
Good point, good point. Ziona?
I agree with one thing that every student is individual. So why give them one test that modifies the math? Students with disabilities or students who come from non-English speaking backgrounds don't have the same test taking abilities as students who do. It's not fair to treat them all the same. It's not fair to set the norm and say that you don't fall towards this norm, you just are forgotten and fall to the wayside. I believe that every child has a right to education. I believe that this is not cutting them out of a school system or saying that they're not good enough and can't get into the next grade level because they didn't fill out the standardized test right. It's not fair. It's not fair to students who are treated, who have disabilities or who are treated lesser. Every child is an individual, like you said. They are, and they should be treated that way. They could be recorded in other ways other than filling out a bubble at the end of the year, filling out a form at the end of the year. There could be sample testing, they could be testing through computer programs. I mean, there's such better ways of testing kids today than through one test at the end of the year.
Good point, good point. So I see this is a very hard topic to cover because both topics, they have good points. So one cannot really like choose a side because both arguments are unquestionable. They have really good supports. Do you guys, before we wrap up, do you guys have any more thoughts you'd like to express? Let's start with Ziona.
I'd just like to say that I know, as we discussed in our class, we are all different learners, and we all harness information differently. So I don't believe that we should be treated the same when it comes to our education. I believe that there are better ways of educating us than saying we need one test that determines all the amount of work we've done the entire year or semester or what have you. We should be given other opportunities to show our skills than just filling out a page. There's so much more to us than just one test.
That's a good point. Jonathan, do you have anything to say to this topic?
Um, I would like to wrap up my side of the argument, rather the debate, by saying that these standardized tests are necessary. And they're necessary in the sense that they hold the teacher as well as the school districts accountable for what it is their students are learning, by ensuring that they are learning this information and retaining it and being able to apply it and critically think. Because tests don't stop after school. So for this reason, I believe that these standardized testing is necessary, as well as it does for a minority student, as compared to other student who might have that scholastic confidence in themselves and understand themselves in that academic sense a lot better. I believe it gives the minority students the opportunity to really see where they're at mentally, academically, and it encourages them to have that confidence in themselves and have that belief in themselves. So for these reasons, I do believe that standardized tests are necessary.
Good point, good point. I like how you guys both wrapped up your points and you did give a little bit more insight. And in conclusion, to wrap this all together, I'd like to say that there are pros and cons to standardized testing, as mentioned already. These assessments keep track of schools and make sure they reach a certain standard. However, there is a question of whether these tests are an accurate recording of students' abilities, or should they stick to the school policies? Do they make you better, or do they flaw you just because of all the mistakes you make? So the next time you take a standardized test, think about whether it should determine your future. And for those of you that wanted to know, this is our works cited page, in case you want to see all the information given and where you can find it. This has been our presentation, Ziona, and
Thank you.